A very good evening and a very warm welcome to the national broadcast. I am Malsha Dharmavardhana.
And I am Tilina Udayaratna. For starters, we take a quick look at tonight's top stories. Addressing the United Nations General Assembly, the President emphasizes on the need to work together in a spirit of true cooperation, generosity, goodwill and mutual respect to foster a better and more sustainable future for all humanity. The vaccination of children above the age of 12 with congenital diseases will begin tomorrow. A media coordination center for persons with special needs. The National Television's educational program Gurutalava commenced today for the students facing the advanced level examination this year.
On to those and other stories in detail now, starting with your local stories. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says it is the role of the United Nations to treat all sovereign states, irrespective of size or strength, equitably and with due respect for their institutions and heritage. The President requested all UN member states to work together in a spirit of true cooperation, generosity, goodwill and mutual respect to foster a better and a more sustainable future for all humanity.
The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa, President, Head of the Cabinet of Ministers, Minister for Defense, Minister for Technology of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. I request the protocol to escort His Excellency.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa made these remarks while addressing the 76th session of United Nations General Assembly in New York. The President addressed the session at 9:30 p.m. in Sri Lankan time yesterday.
Mr. President, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on humanity. I sympathize deeply with all who have lost their loved ones during the pandemic. I thank frontline healthcare and essential workers around the world for their dedication and commend the World Health Organization for its crisis response. I also greatly appreciate the rapid advances made by the scientific and medical communities in devising vaccines and treatment protocols to combat the virus. At the same time, we must recognize that the challenges surrounding production, distribution, deployment, and acceptance of vaccines must be overcome urgently if the spread of dangerous new virus strains is to be prevented. Ensuring that everyone, everywhere, is vaccinated is the best way out of the pandemic. Although still a developing nation, Sri Lanka has been very successful in its vaccination program. We have already fully vaccinated nearly all those above the age of 30. Everyone over the age of 20, we will start vaccinating children over 15 years of age in the near future. The rapid progress of vaccinations was enabled by coordinated efforts between healthcare workers, armed forces, and police personnel, government servants, and elected officials. In collaboration with the WHO, Sri Lanka is establishing a regional knowledge hub to facilitate exchange of lessons learned from COVID-19 and support countries to recover better. Sri Lanka also benefited greatly from financial and material support provided by bilateral and multilateral donors to manage the pandemic. I thank these nations and institutions for their generosity. The increased global cooperation visible during this ongoing crisis is greatly encouraging. However, there is still more to be done. Mr. President, the economic impact of the pandemic has been especially severe on developing countries. This has placed the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals at considerable risk. It is vital that more initiatives, including development financing and debt relief, be adopted through international mechanisms to support developing nations and help them emerge from this uncertain situation. Sri Lanka too has suffered greatly due to the pandemic. In addition to the tragic loss of life, our economy has been deeply affected. The lockdowns, together with general movement restrictions, reduced international travel, and slower global growth have affected nearly all sectors of our economy. Tourism, one of Sri Lanka's highest foreign exchange earners, and a sector that supports nearly 14% of the population, has been devastated. This industry, together with small and medium businesses in many other sectors, received government support through interest moratoriums and other financial sector interventions. Daily wage earners and low-income groups were also supported through grants of cash and dry rations during lockdowns, adding significantly to state expenditure. In addition to their immediate impact, these economic repercussions of the pandemic have limited the fiscal space available to implement our development programs. As devastating as the consequences of the pandemic have been to humanity, the world faces the even greater challenge of climate change in the decades to come. As emphasized in the recent report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the unprecedented effect of human activity on the health of the planet is deeply worrying. Addressing the grave threats posed by climate change and the loss of biodiversity requires decisive and urgent multilateral action. As a climate-vulnerable country, Sri Lanka is deeply aware of the dangers of climate change. Through the adoption of the Colombo Declaration on Sustainable Nitrogen Management, which seeks to have nitrogen waste by 2030, Sri Lanka has also contributed to global efforts to reduce environmental pollution. Sustainability is a cornerstone of Sri Lanka's national policy framework. Because of its impact on soil fertility, biodiversity, waterways and health, my government completely banned the use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides and weedicides earlier this year. Production and adoption of organic fertilizer as well as investments into organic agriculture are being incentivized. I appreciate the encouragement received from many global institutions and nations for our efforts to create a more sustainable agriculture in Sri Lanka. The conservation of our environment is one of our key national priorities. We aim to increase forest cover significantly in the coming decades. We are also working to clean and restore over 100 rivers countrywide and to combat river and maritime pollution. We have also banned single-use plastics to support ecological conservation. Sri Lanka recognizes the urgent need to reduce use of fossil fuel and support decarbonization. Our energy policy seeks to increase the contribution of renewable sources such as solar, wind, and hydropower to 70% of our national energy needs by 2030. Mr. President, Sri Lanka welcomes the support of the international community as it engages in the task of reviving its economy and carrying out its national development program. We intend to make full use of geostrategic location and our robust institutions, strong social infrastructure, and skilled workforce to attract investment and broaden trade relationships. My government is focusing on extensive legal, regulatory, administrative, and educational reforms to facilitate this and to deliver prosperity to all our people. Sri Lanka has enjoyed universal adult franchise since pre-independence. The democratic tradition is an integral part of our way of life. My election in 2019 and the parliamentary elections in 2020 saw Sri Lankan voters grant an emphatic mandate to my government to build a prosperous and stable country and uphold national security and sovereignty. In 2019, Sri Lanka experienced the devastation wrought by extremist religious terrorists in the Easter Sunday attacks. Before that, until 2009, it had suffered from a separatist terrorist war for 30 years. Terrorism is a global challenge that requires international cooperation, especially on matters such as intelligence sharing, if it is to be overcome. Violence robbed Sri Lanka of thousands of lives and decades of prosperity in the past half-century. My government is committed to ensuring that such violence never takes place in Sri Lanka again. We are therefore acting to address the core issues behind it, fostering greater accountability, restorative justice, and meaningful reconciliation through domestic institutions is essential to achieve lasting peace. So too is ensuring more equitable participation in the fruits of economic development. It is my government's firm intention to build a prosperous, stable, and secure future for all Sri Lankans, regardless of ethnicity, religion, or gender. We are ready to engage with all domestic stakeholders and to obtain the support of our international partners and the United Nations in this process. However, history has shown that lasting results can only be achieved through homegrown institutions reflecting the aspirations of the people. Sri Lanka's parliament, judiciary, and its range of independent statutory bodies should have unrestricted scope to exercise their functions and responsibilities. It is the role of the United Nations to facilitate this by treating all sovereign states, irrespective of size or strength, equitably and with due respect for their institutions and their heritage. I request the United Nations and the international community to ensure the protection of the Buddhist heritage of Afghanistan. I call on the member states of this August Assembly to work together in a spirit of true cooperation, generosity, goodwill to foster a better and more sustainable future for all humanity.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President, Head of the Cabinet Ministers, Minister for Defense, Minister for Technology of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka for the statement just made.
In other local stories, pediatricians urge parents and adults not to be deceived by myths and superstitions and get their children vaccinated. A medical team, including pediatricians, made these remarks while speaking at the virtual media briefing organized by the Presidential Media Center held today. Vaccination of children was the theme of today's discussion. The vaccination of children with congenital diseases will begin tomorrow at the Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children in Colombo. The vaccination program is carried out with the recommendations from expert committees of the world and the country. The specialists pointed out that successful results can be achieved through precise understanding and interest without undue fear. Accordingly, Dr. Anuruddhapadeniya advised parents to take children for vaccination who are suffering from chronic diseases, including diabetes, neurological diseases, kidney disease, heart disease, thalassemia, and diseases of the urinary tract and esophagus. Dr. Anuruddhapadeniya said that they are planning to administer the vaccine with the permission of parents as well as with the recommendation of the relevant specialist doctor when they visit the clinics where they are being treated. Pediatricians stated that all plans required for the vaccination of children in all provincial, district and base hospitals in the coming days have been prepared in accordance with the recommendations of specialists. It has been decided to vaccinate children under 3 age groups. The initial vaccination is given to children with congenital diseases who are between the ages of 12 and 19. The doctors said that the vaccination of healthy children in the age groups of 15 to 19 years will begin in the future, and that the vaccination for the children in the age group of 12 to 15 years will begin as soon as the recommendations of the specialists are received. Specialist Dr. Anuruddha Padeniya said that even after the vaccination, a team of doctors would monitor the children's complications under the supervision of specialists and would reintroduce a direct telephone number to obtain instructions in case of any complications at home. It was revealed that the experts committee has given the approval to administer the vaccine only in hospitals and to administer only the Pfizer vaccine to children. The chairman of the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation, Dr. Prasanna Gunasena, expressed disappointment over the statements made by some personnel who are not experts in the field of vaccination through media. He requested all media institutions and journalists to broadcast news with regard to vaccination of children only after confirming information from pediatric specialists. Related agencies and the specialists in providing special services will have more input. Specialist Dr. Gunasena pointed out that the spread of myths faster than the virus is a serious matter and said that the doctors as well as media should act responsibly since vaccinating children is a sensitive issue in our society. Pediatric specialist Professor Pujitha Vikramasinghe pointed out that online education is a serious obstacle to the development of a child's external skills. Parents fear their children being sent to schools with congenital diseases and even if schools begin, and added that the vaccination could help prevent children from losing equal opportunity to education. When journalists asked if there were any examples of vaccinating children in other countries, the experts said that countries such as the United States, Australia, Germany, Switzerland, Norway and the United Kingdom have already vaccinated children in these age groups. Dr. Sampath Indika Kumara, Director of Health Services of the Northwestern Province, requested parents to get children vaccinated without any fear or suspicion, as Sri Lanka has a special experience in vaccination with the advanced healthcare system in South Asia.
A meeting of the party leaders of the Sri Lanka Podu Jana Alliance was held at the Temple Trees under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa this evening. The Office of Prime Minister has indicated that the meeting, which was included the opinion and suggestions of the party leaders, was held close to 2-hour period. The relevant meeting was held to discuss over the budget 2021 and continuing of the government activities amidst COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, the attention was directed on the preparation of a mechanism to brief the government parliamentarians on draft bill before presenting them to the parliament. A discussion was held on the benefits to be given for electricity consumers following the Yudhaganawa power station. Former President Maithripala Sirisena, Minister Basil Rajapaksa, Dinesh Gunawardena, Vasudeva Nanayakara, Johnston Fernando, Vimal Veeravansa, Douglas Devananda and parliamentarians Sagara Karyavasam, Professor Tissa Vitarana, M. Rameshwaran, Tiran Alas and Vimala Sumara Veerasinghe were present at this occasion.
The PCR laboratory established at the Bandaranaike International Airport was declared open today. The event was held with the participation of Ministers Keheliya Ramukwella and Prasanna Ranatunga and State Minister D.V. Chanaka. This laboratory has been established at the 18th post area in Katunayaka. All tourists arriving in the country will be directed to PCR tests at this centre from next Saturday. The centre has been equipped with facilities to conduct 500 PCR tests in 1 hour and 7,000 tests in a day. The PCR tests of tourists will be issued within a period of 3 hours. Accordingly, non-infected tourists and tourists who have received both doses of a COVID-19 vaccine will be allowed to travel to their destinations without any disruption. This is the first ever laboratory to be established affiliated to an airport in an Asian country. Even though a private company has invested in this initiative, the complete ownership of the laboratory will be vested with the Airport and Aviation Services Limited. A fee of $40 will be charged from a tourist for a PCR test. Chairman of the Airport and Aviation Services Limited, retired Major General G.L. Chandrasiri, was present at the occasion. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 immunization program has begun in 415 centers across 22 districts. A vaccination program was held at the Kurunegala General Hospital yesterday. Persons between the ages of 20 to 29 were vaccinated at this centre. A total of 25,339,522 doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been inoculated thus far. 14,032,696 persons have received the first dose at present. Meanwhile, 11,306,826 persons have received both doses in the country. A total of 854,216 vaccine doses have been administered in the country during the last 7 days. 228,645 doses were administered yesterday. 918 COVID-19 infected persons were identified today. 45,400 cases have been risen as active. A total of 951 recoveries have been reported today, increasing total recoveries in the country to 451,742. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services today confirmed that 72 COVID-19 related deaths had been reported yesterday. The new COVID-19 ward constructed at the Delgoda Kanduboda Ayurveda Rural Hospital was declared open today with the participation of State Minister Sisira Jayakodi. The newly constructed ward can accommodate up to 40 resident patients. Lanka Hospitals Corporation Private Limited has donated 10 million rupees to the Itukama COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund. Company's Group Chief Executive Officer Deepthi Lukuarachi handed over the cheque to Additional Secretary to the President and Chief of Staff Major General K.B. Igodavela recently. Deposits can be made through cheques and telegraphic transfers via www.itukama.lk or by dialing #207#. Further information can be obtained from 0760 700 700, 0112 320 880, 0112 354 340 or 0112 424 012. Minister Kehelia Rambukwala received a 30 million rupees worth medical equipment consignment today. The relevant donation was extended by Chief Sanganayaka of Taiwan and Vice Chancellor of the International Buddhist Educational Institute in Nagananda.
Today marks the International Day of Sign Languages. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed the International Day on the same date that the World Federation of the Deaf was established in 1951. With more than 300 sign languages, the global deaf community exceeds 70 million across the world. This year's theme of the International Day of Sign Languages is We Sign for Human Rights. Accordingly, many programs have been organized worldwide to ensure fundamental rights of the global deaf community. The General Society has a limited understanding over sign language. Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation took the first step in the year 2000 to change the backward-ridden social ideologies in this regard. The national television presented a weekly program in sign language with local news reports. Steps were taken to include sign language from 8 p.m. main news bulletin since December 2012. It is considered as the highest recognition given to sign language through the country's electronic media platform. Meanwhile, President's Vistas of Prosperity policy statement has also directed attention on the communities of persons with various disabilities. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has pointed out that the sign language has become a universal intercommunication mechanism used by each segment of the society at present and cannot be discarded as a communication methodology of one segment of the society. Extending his well wishes on the International Day of Sign Languages, the President has further pointed out that the attention will be directed on the well-being of the community with special needs for use sign language in Sri Lanka in the journey to achieve the vision of prosperity. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, extending his well wishes on the International Day of Sign Language, said that Sri Lanka recognized the day to support and protect the linguistic identity and cultural diversity of all people with hearing impairments and other sign language users. The Prime Minister said that as a government, they are always open to give the hearing impaired community the strength to work with general public without any discrimination. Extending his well wishes, Minister Dallas Alahaperuma said that a voice should be given for the unsilenced thoughts of country's hearing impaired citizens. The minister has pointed out that this would be a step taken by the Sri Lanka towards a prosperous nation. Meanwhile, the Coordinating Centre for the Persons with Special Needs established at the Government Information Department declared open today under the patronage of Minister Dallas Alahaperuma. The new centre is equipped with necessary facilities to fulfill the requirements of targeted groups. Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, Jagat P. Vijayveera, Additional Director General of Government Information Department, Milinda Rajapaksha, and representatives from the Joint Front for Persons with Disabilities were present at this occasion.
The National Television's Guruthalava educational program, dedicated for students facing the GCE Advanced Level examination this year, commenced today. The program was launched under the patronage of Minister Dallas Alahaperuma. The National Television has introduced a revision program series for 10 selected advanced level subjects under the program series Guruthalava, Asidisi and Siphala. The revision program will be conducted by a renowned and popular panel of teachers in the country. The Educational Division of the National Television has taken measures to live telecast the Guruthalava Advanced Level Revision Program series daily from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Accordingly, the National Television has facilitated the opportunity for students to engage in their educational activities from their homes, though through with an atmosphere of a classroom. The opportunity has also been provided for students to direct their issues pertaining to lessons to teachers during this program. The live telecast of all episodes of the Guruthalava program will also be available on the YouTube channel Jatika Pasala. The relevant study material for the revision programs can be downloaded from the Jatika Pasala YouTube channel. The National Television is committed for the education of the children of the country, even amidst such a crisis situation. Well, that's a wrap on tonight's Rupavahini English News. Join us once again tomorrow. Until then, thanks for watching. Take care, stay safe, have a great night.
Good night.